to Corporate Service Committee meeting on the 10th of December 2025. Call this meeting open at 1:03, and we'll rattle along here. We've got applications for attending via video.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Councillor Stolz has requested to attend via video link, and whilst we do have a video link established, we believe there's a bit of a sound issue where we may struggle to hear him.
Photo mover. Move Councillor Fraser, second Councillor Shields, all those in favour. Councillor Colson. We've got one. Sorry for the confusing. All those in favour, I think you guys have it. Welcome Councillor Stolz, and I'll keep an eye on the chat there. Councillor, pop your hand up if I've missed anything. And we've got any apologies, question Amanda?
No apologies, but I've been advised Councillor Shields may need to leave early, in which case the Mayor will take over voting rights at that stage.
Alrighty, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Shields, for the early notice of that. Disclosures of interest.
Nil received.
Any public participation?
No public participation.
We move into business items. Mr. Phelps, if you could run us through the Finance Committee report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll move on to page 3, down the bottom there, with the financial information summary in the Finance Corp 12.1. As you can see there, at the end of November, a negative variance to budget of 1.19 million compared to a positive variance in October of 348,000. The main movers in regards to the actual financial position, operating revenue is up compared to budget of about 1.13 million. The main contributors behind that, people and culture revenue, increased level of trainee and apprenticeship subsidies from new government incentives. We're reviewing those incentives at the moment and isolating those and putting them off to the actual departments that they relate to. So obviously they'll have the costs attached to those new trainee and apprenticeship subsidies. The community services admin revenue was lower by about 38,000. There's been a change in the actual funding stream for the community services building program. So we're reviewing that at this point in time, and that's being assessed. So normally we were receiving just under or just over about $170,000 in regards to community builders. However, the Department of Community and Justice have changed their funding streams, so we'll be looking at what resources we need to deliver the community services area. Obviously, with that additional funding that we were receiving, that was funding a position that was dedicated to the actual community services area. Government place revenue was higher by about 127,000. Overall, it's just been increasing in personal care subsidies with the department, depending on the dependency of residents coming through. We may see that start to drop off with Council's decision in October to remove itself from the aged care provider scenario by the end of April. Pretty well we're going through the process and not replacing residents that do come off and are going off to the actual MPS over in Mary Wharf. So that may have an effect overall, but we will have savings on cost side as well coming through the mix.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
You can hear me over?
Yep. Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Phelps, is it still a case that we'll be taking in respite to government?
I think we can for short periods. Overall, through you, Mr. Chair, we'll be taking in respite if they fall within that time frame of the closure date. So for a short period of time, we can take on the respite assistance and up until such time as we actually physically close the service.
Thanks, Mr. Phelps.
Thank you. Moving down into the early learning and family daycare area, the revenues are higher by about 82,000. So Over there, we've maintained the strong utilisation through the service. So we're entering a lull period now, though. So there may be a bit of a drop off of that increased revenue streams over the December-January period until such time as the new enrolments start turning up in February. Real estate revenue was higher by about 77,000, maintaining just a higher than expected commercial rental at the moment, which is quite good. So continuing with that vein. Sale yards also is higher by 101,000. We've had strong throughput coming through the facility over the last 5 months, which has been very pleasing, and that's continued into December. Obviously, we'll be monitoring that as it comes into the second half of the year, and seeing whether the market does come off. But the industry has been up and going at the moment. The waste revenue was higher by about 227. The higher than expected annual charges coming through, and a little bit higher in landfill collections. It's nearly spot on with landfill, but it's up by about $70,000 overall for the 5-month period. General purpose, again, higher by 100,000, just the increased annual rating yield coming through with lower than expected pensioner concessions and a bit higher returns on investment revenue, which is quite pleasing. Public cemeteries is higher by 46,000. It's come off slightly from what it was in October. So it's one of those cyclic ones that a lot of plots and interments have been acquired in the last 5 months. However, that may drop off in the second half of the year. Town planning is higher by about 57,000, increase in our stat fees as well as Section 94 development contributions. Overall, that's been offset slightly by the contributions that we received through the New England and Central West Orana RES funding schemes. They were throwing out a lot of money, which we just cannot spend. So we're going back to the actuals that we're actually recovering from them. We are actually recovering dollars for dollar for the services we're providing for that area. Water revenue was higher by about $280,000. So we've got higher annual access charges again, which is pleasing, and Section 64 contributions. The first quarter of water was a little bit higher, and the second quarter is actually going through the billing system at the moment. So we'll see that come in the December month coming through. Sewerage services higher by about 46,000. Again, Section 64 contributions. So there's been a little bit of movement in development around the area, which has been quite pleasing coming through. A little bit higher in investment returns as well. Moving into the non-operating and revenue and expenditure. Here we're actually a little bit higher in our internal revenue after we made up some adjustments in some votes coming through. So we're continuing to monitor the fleet utilisations and making sure that we maintain our budget coming through for the rest of the year. So there's been a fair bit of work going to that space to capture our internal fleet hire and charge to the appropriate areas. Moving into our operating expenditure, here we're a little bit overspent at the moment by $1.1 million, so pretty well eradicates the increase in revenue by 1.1 as well. Number of ups and downs throughout the system coming through. Overall corporate entities admin costs are lower by 149. Again, we've got a few timing issues with mainly the infrastructure, the information services or the IT area by about $100,000 of that 149. But there's other areas there where there's been some staff vacancies within the services that are providing, but we're overall a little bit lower in our costs coming through. Community services, admin costs, we've lost that revenue, but we've had savings in regards to vacancies within the community services area. So it's a bit of an offsetter against that grant funding that is coming that we're going to lose. So that position that's vacant at the moment probably won't be filled coming through the mix into the next 6 months. Government place is a little bit higher by 138, mainly the increased cost of the agency staff still and the facility manager. So the facility manager will probably stay on tap until we come to a point when it actually is closed. And and that's costing us a little bit of money from that, but it's something that we need to put in place until such time as the facility is closed. Early Learning Centre costs are higher by about 62,000. We're a little bit higher in our revenues, but also we've had to have some additional staff to accommodate those higher children numbers at the facility. So it's nearly wiped the revenue side of that out. Youth services costs are lower by about $58,000. We struggled with staff in the youth area at the moment. So the youth services and the EIPP is a lot lower than what we anticipated. The new funding streams that DCJ have brought into play will leave in place the EIPP type service that we are providing. So that will continue on. It's only just the community services one that we'll be losing. Tourism and promotion is higher by 57,000, just got higher wages. Just as mentioned in last month's report, the allocation for the tourism coordinator wasn't actually identified in the budget coming through. So we're going to propose a vote to be taken up in December after we review the forecast going forward to see how much that is. And that'll be funded by any savings that we do have possibly from the corporate area.
Just on the community services grant that we're losing, could you tease that out a little bit more? What is that grant, and what are we not meeting, or is that a change of process?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a change in the focus of DCJ. So the Department of Community and Justice. It's effectively they're removing out of it the community services aspect of it, who also were looking after a lot of items such as youth as well, and they've left in place the EIPP, but they've removed the other out of there, and it's not just our own council; it's across the board.
Through you, Mr. Chair, is this another ugly example of cost shifting?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Shields, the latest change probably isn't a cost shifting issue. Probably what happened previously was a cost shifting issue. So state government had funding, a number of programs. Rather than the state government providing those programs directly, they simply said to council, here's money, you go and provide the programs. Now, we could never provide all those programs. One of them was qualified counsellors for youth services. We never had ability to put on qualified counsellors, and we were actually using external counsellors in such that's been reviewed. So we effectively said we can't continue to provide that service. It was offset by the cash they gave us, so there's no real net loss to us. We're just putting it back to them. There's a couple of other programs too that we're just saying we just can't simply provide those services any further.
Moving into our stormwater maintenance, so the costs are lower by 38,000 there, so it's lower than expected initial maintenance activities undertaken to date. So we'll need to look at those, especially with the summer showers and everything happening at the moment, with very high deluge of rain happening at different points. Waste management is higher by about 139,000. Been higher than expected bulky waste pickups at the moment, so it was a lot higher. Just got to go through and review those costs to make sure it comes through. So we increased the categories of materials that were collected. Previous years that we left out of it the electrics and also its metal and items. So that was a bit more additional cost coming through.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just a question that's not really financial, but after the bulky goods pick up in whenever it was October, and it specified mattresses weren't to be picked up, there's a place down the road from me who's had a mattress sitting out the front of their house ever since. I don't know whether they're expecting someone to come along and pick it up. Can we actually say to those people, it's your problem, take it away?
Overall, through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we can do that. There is a mattress pickup though service that's going to happen at some point in time. That I do not know when, but ultimately, that someone just needs to knock on the door and say, "Hey, you need to take the mattress in, and this is the date when the mattress pickup will happen, so you can drag it out back out then." Moving down to our governance costs is lower by 41, so just lower management costs to date, and with extended staff on leave, extended leave for staff that's been taken. Town planning costs is lower by 167,000. This is partly the res side of things, so the funded positions that we have in res is a lot lower than we anticipated. So we're just reviewing the forecast coming forward, and it'll be an offset vote between the two items in town planning revenue and costs. Building costs are lower by about 34,000. Again, we've got staff vacancies in roles in the certifier and surveying roles. So we'll be looking at trying to fill those roles. We're looking at trainees as well in those positions to try and gain a bit of experience, as well as filling a person on a chair and actually doing some work in regards to it. The animal control costs are lower by about 37,000. We're looking at trying to fill the position of the ranger in compliance. At the moment, both roles are vacant. We had a compliance officer plus also a trainee. Both roles are actually vacant at the moment, so we're going through the recruitment stage in regards to that. Community centres and hall costs are higher by about 32, higher than expected utility costs to date. So I'm just reviewing those costs at the moment to see whether or not there's any allocations that need to happen. So we'll come back with any allocations and reallocating if we need to coming through. Public library costs are higher by 77,000. They've had higher salaries and forward purchasing of a lot of their reading material up front. So we'll be dragging those costs back a little bit in the second half of the year coming through. So we've highlighted that to the coordinator over in the library. Sporting grounds is higher by 85k. Again, we've had a continual increase in the cost of the servicing and maintaining of the grounds. It's been higher than what we anticipated. Obviously, the grounds are doing quite well. So we're always keen to maintain that presence down there. So we'll have a look and see whether or not we can bring into a vote to cover off the overspend and maintain that level throughout the year. Swimming pool maintenance is higher by about 48. Again, it's the repainting of the Marundi pool and Scone pool. It's completed prior to the opening. We'll look at bringing a vote in to cover off the cost of that as well in the February or the December 6-month end. Aerodrome costs are lower by about 50k, so we've pretty well bedded down the new operating model with the contracted ARO and Council's Parks and Facility maintaining the land area. So the costs have been a little bit lower than what we anticipated, which has been pleasing. So we'll continue to monitor that coming through. Obviously, with summer and a bit of rain, grass will grow. So we'll have to look at that as we with our maintenance regime. Footpath maintenance is lower by 30,000. Limited maintenance activities have been undertaken to date. So we'll be looking at whether or not there's some footpaths out there that need a bit of grounding and stuff. So to take away a few trip hazards in the mix. RMS state roads costs are lower by about 65,000, nearly spot on budget really when you look at the value of the actual the budget itself. So we've just had lower than expected routine maintenance. We've had crews working on some individual price works orders, which is a project out on Cassilis intersection. So that's why the routine maintenance is a little bit lower. Local roads admin and staff costs are higher by about 117. Just higher salaries and trainees have been undertaken for this first 6 months. That should slow down in the second 6-month period coming through. We're reviewing those costs though to see whether or not some of those salaries can be reallocated to capital works projects. I think that there's probably just an allocation issue in regards to some of the manager's role and also the senior tech officers' roles in that area. So we'll have a look and see whether or not we can push those into some project areas. A big one that pushes us up is our local and regional road maintenance is higher by about nearly $1 million. So it's just been an increased focus on maintenance over the last 6 months. and the works are well in advance of what our annual program is at this point in time. So we're expecting the crews to be reallocated to the flood works damage. So we're lodging the claims for our gravel packages for the recent events, which is the May and the July, August events, which is 10-12 and 12-16. A lot of the crews will be reallocated to those works in the second half of the year, and to bring our maintenance budget back down into balance. So we're just ahead of the game a little bit at the moment, coming through the mix. Flood restoration, with this one, it's a little bit lower at the moment. Obviously, we're just awaiting the approval of those two events coming through, and then the crews will start to commence work on those identified damages as they come through. The big item is the water costs are high by about 415. We've had increased maintenance required for our mains and pump stations to date. So we're reviewing those costs, and we will have some reallocations, I would assume, through renewals in a number of those areas, which will bring through into the December 6-month ends. So as you can see, that a lot of the ups and downs within there, very small amounts, except when you get to the roads and the water area, which is the predominant part of the variation. The other items that are in front of budget or overspent at this point in time, mainly due to a bit of timing, but also there's some items in here that we'll be looking for votes to come through and to offset the expenditure that was required for capital purposes. So it's $1.3 million overspent at the moment. Campbell's Corner, it's higher than budget by 29,000. So those works are continuing. It's all fully is grant funded. So those restoration projects are nearing completion. So we'll be going through and acquitting those projects out of the mix. The Bellman Hangar is lower by 28,000. Works are continuing. The frame is to be stood up in December. And finalisation will be in March 2026. So we should have that one acquitted by the end of the year as well. And that one's a fully funded project as well. The town Christmas lights.
That's all right. I'll wait till I catch his eye. The maintenance shed, I believe it's going up as well. Is it to be?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The maintenance shed will be stood up in December as well. So it hopefully is in process at the moment. Yeah. So we're close to finishing off that, and then we can effectively fully acquit the grant funding that relates to that shed and the airside works. Christmas lights upgrade is lower by 25,000. We haven't spent any money at the moment on the Christmas lights, as I can see.
You know, I'm disappointed. I wanted one thing this year. One thing. Yeah. Well, we discussed whether they got taken down, so I'm glad that the decision wasn't made to take them down.
So yes, there's been no costs incurred to date. There could be costs before the end of this month, though. But anyhow, waste facility at Scone, the road entrance is progressing quite well. It's higher than budget 95. So that was the entrance to the facility. So final costs will be collated over the course of the next month and a half, and then we'll bring in a vote from the reserve for the waste facility itself. Scone Park upgrades are higher by the 144. So those costs are the final costs have just come in for that works. So we'll be able to bring a vote in December to cover off those works coming through, the drainage works. White Park camping sites is higher by 47,000. All the sites are now complete. Final costs are coming through, and we'll provide a vote for that. We've got contributions from third parties coming through for that as well, and we'll probably have a bit of grant funding that will cover off a bit of the cost.
Just in relation to White Park, and I know we're going to probably go over this ground again this afternoon later in another meeting for those two people are watching this on YouTube. The camping income is that that's now as a result of there being prepayments made to council for the whole of the camping site, or are we still collecting individual fees at this stage? What is there some? Are we attributing this to a change in system, or is it just why are we gathering more income? Is it a better system that was involved?
Overall, there's been better utilisation. Obviously, if you've got a powered campsite, we get double the revenue from the powered camping sites. And also they've been very well utilised.
Sorry, I'll add to that too, through you, Chair. I don't think it really matters too much whether they're pre-purchased by the user or sold individually by council. What we're finding though is by having a presence at White Park, we are ensuring payment occurs in either mechanism. So we've had both the White Park field officer doing weekend runs, and before some of the larger events over the last few months, Anna has actually been going down there and working from the facility so that her time is sort of not lost, but checking as people actually drive in the gate that they do have prepaid tickets. So I think just the processes that we've improved have been improved.
Very good. Moving into the regional and local roads reseals, a little bit higher. It's only really a timing thing. So we've just done a bit of initial preparations for the reseals that are currently underway. So they're being done at this point in time. So it's only a timing issue. Main Road 62, the repair works. Overall for the budget, it's well under budget coming through. So the works were completed in the September period, and just reviewing the final work scope and seeing whether or not we can extend that a little bit further. We had funding through the local community and community roads and infrastructure program, plus also the Roads to Recovery. So we'll be looking at whether or not we can extend that works out a little bit further. Coulsons Creek Roads higher by about 203,000. Pretty well the work's progressing on schedule, on budget. It's only really just a timing of when the big chunky payments do come through. Rural Road resheeting is higher by about 231 at this point in time. We've progressed the resheeting program, pretty well spent all the budget so far. So we'll be looking at seeing whether or not we can reallocate any funds to continue with the resheeting, but our main focus will be towards the flood works and maintenance in the second 6 months.
Through you, Mr. Chair, have we got a functional opening date for 358?
We have an estimate at this stage, Councillor, but we're not publishing that because we're still uncertain. Probably in the next week, we will give a fairly clear date. We're still aiming for before Christmas. It's just how much before Christmas will be. We don't want to sort of create any undue expectations in the community at this stage. We will let councillors know before we let the community know, so we will keep you in the loop. But there's a bit of just scheduling with a little bit of rain scheduled this week, which might just throw a few things out. So we just need to be very mindful that it's close, but can't give a date at this stage.
And with that in the case, I'm going to take my leave if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, councillor. You have a good day.
So just for our minute taker, Karen, can you just note that the Mayor's now a voting member? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving into our Glenbourne Dam pipeline upgrade, all the works has been completed. The final costs are being confirmed, and we'll bring a final vote in for the 123. That's after the revote that we put through council a couple of months ago. So it's a little bit higher than what we anticipated from the revote. The Cassler sewer system is lower by about 38,000. Initial design and groundworks is now being undertaken. So we're going through the process of progressing the system over there. Merriwa STP, the sewer treatment plant sludge drying beds are higher by about 34,000. The cost of finalising the project was higher than expected. We're just reviewing again the final costs and then we'll bring a vote in at the next meeting. And the sewer renewal works is higher by 58,000. It's just mainly a timing issue that we've got there. So overall, the works have been a little bit in advance of where we anticipated. So overall, as you can see, there's been a number of ups and downs through there to make the $1.3 million increase over budget. The actual total variance, as you can see there, is the 1.19 million. No votes are put through for this month. So on page 10 there, we've got no votes or surrenders requested in this month. We're just going through reviewing the first half of the year, and then we'll bring some votes in for the next meeting for the end of December in February 26. Moving through into our bank funds, we've got about 20.76 million on tap at the moment. At the end of November, 20.28 of that is sitting in our investments and cash management area. The schedule attached highlights the items. External loans, 26.74 million. So it's just continuing to reduce over time. And we've got a schedule in there. Internal loans, as mentioned previously, just to give you an update, that's continuing through. The first repayment's been done on the September period of those loans that we've drawn down, and we'll continue to make those repayments coming through. Restricted assets, there's a schedule involved in there to forecast out to the end of June 26. And capital expenditure.
Could I just note that in relation to the restricted assets report, the revised forecast column seems to be for the 30/6/2025.
That only, through Mr. Chair, that'd be a typo, Councillor Fraser. It should be 26.
Just going back to the bank reconciliation, I note an account transfer of 2.55 million, a substantial transfer. Where did that come from? And that presumably went into general revenue, did it? Or
yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. It comes from the cash management account and it goes off to pay the creditors, which is mainly the high level 358 numbers, which is about 2 million a year. So it's just creditors moving in and out. So that would be some of your unexpended grant funding.
Yep, so that's coming purely out of grants that have already been satisfied. The subject of which have been satisfied. So it's funds that are due to be expended on those grants.
Yeah. So ultimately, it's effectively we have the cash management account that just holds the cash, brings it backwards and forwards. So whatever money that we have in our main account, we'll put it into the cash management account so that we get interest on it, a little bit of interest on it. We might have term deposits that fall due, which will pay for a lot of the unexpended grant expenditure, being Main Road 358 effectively. So it's just a transfer of funds from the cash management to the main account.
Yeah, but presumably that 2.55, that's not from rating revenue or something else. That's come from restricted assets, has it not?
It comes from any forms of revenue. So when we get cash through the bank, and we might get money for works that we've done on the Golden Highway. If we've got excess money in our general fund, we'll put it into the cash management account to actually physically pay creditors at a later date. So it'll include your grants that you receive. So any excess cash we have from grants, rates that come in, your user fees, all those sort of things, they go into there. And then we'll invest that into term deposits coming through if we feel that we don't need that money for the next 3 to 6 months.
Well, the reason I ask is it seems to be an oddly specific amount. It's a very neat number.
Yeah.
It would appear to me to come from a discrete area, which is most likely the redemption of a term deposit.
Yeah, we transfer bulk amounts, so we won't do an exact amount. It'll be an amount that we probably had a term deposit fall due. It's come into the bank. We transferred it into there, but we won't do amounts that are odd. It'll be hundreds of thousands or in 50s, 50,000s. Could be 1.5 million if we got for $1.5 million in our bank account at that point in time. So it's only just purely a transfer of cash to put it into some interest-bearing deposit. And then we'll bring it back in the other way to pay bills. We'll take it out. It's just more or less your cash management account overall. It's just a facility that we can get a small amount of interest, not much, but a small amount of interest while we have excess cash in the general fund, because we know the big bills are coming. Yeah, okay. So it is effectively just movement of cash through the general fund and cash management account overall. Our term deposits are put on separately as well.
I know, I see that, but
So you'll see a large balance in the cash management account in the investment schedule. That's the balance of that at that point in time.
yeah. And probably not at that point yet, but when we lead on, has there been any access to restricted funds this month outside of sums that are to equip?
No, we actually have unrestricted funds, they're very limited, but we do have unrestricted funds at the end of November. Yep. Correct.
And have done so for the last 5 months.
Yep.
So to get to, I think, the point that Councillor Fraser is making, Chair, we haven't breached the Act in regard to accessing reserves this year. I know it became an issue over past years. This year, the first 5 months, I saw the figures this morning, there's been no breaches of that. So we haven't dipped into any of those reserves. Yeah, I can't give you the 6 months because we're in the 6th month now. So July, August, September, October, November have all had positive balances without the necessity to dip into reserves. The only reserves we have dipped into are the sewer reserves, which we've got ministerial approval to do so. Yeah.
Okay, moving down into the capital expenditure report to the end of November. Here we note that there's $41 million in capital works program. It's been revised from the 34 million initially brought down to the Depop, of which we've spent 15 million so far, which is about 36% of the budget overall. Just moving down into the other areas, mainly the schedules coming through, which is there for your reading. Overall, with the fund and function ones from 14 through to 17, here you'll see that we haven't got any votes or surrenders coming through, and it's only the approvals from the previous months. Overall, our budget forecast is still the same as what it was in the Depop. With a bank rec on page 18, more or less gives you an indication of where the funds are rolling through. And then you've got the investment schedule on page 19 overall, which is pretty well funds that are put on investments to gain a bit of interest. Bank schedule just highlights there that we're $26.74 million principal outstanding at the end of the November period. And then you go into your restricted assets forecast out to June 26. So we'll make the adjustment to that typo there, Councillor Fraser, to bring it into alignment coming through. And then you've got the summary of your work, capital works program that comes through until page 35. So as you can see overall, just as a summary of where each of the projects are sitting, what capital works we've got still to come through over the course of the next 7 months coming through. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. There being no more questions or comments, councillors, are we somebody happy to move all 6 reports for notation?
I'll move.
Moved, Councillor Stiles. We're hearing you loud and clear, sir. I think the ayes have it there, Karen, and we'll move along to the property update. Corporate 12.2, Mr. General Manager. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We've made a small change to this report as part of a request that came from the previous Corporate Services Committee questions in regard to showing actual rental income against budget. So you'll see on page 36 that table now, as well as showing the breakdown of commercial, residential and vacant land that is leased. It also shows the annual budget, year-to-date budget and actual figures for the financial year. In short, commercial property is doing really well for us at the moment. We're ahead of budget. We're probably, what's that, $80,000 ahead in regard to that. Residential is pretty much online, but vacant land, whilst a fairly small component, is a little bit behind. But overall, we've year to date 285,000 against a budgeted figure of 216,000. So the commercial property is holding the lion's share there. We've provided updates to property strategies. There's a couple of other separate standalone property reports in this report agenda as well, which we can talk to when we get to those. But I'm happy to take any questions on either the leases or the property status report.
The residential property income figures seem to be remarkably low for the 6 properties. A total annual income of $20,000 seems to be on the low side to me. Are they market rents, or is there some reason why those numbers appear to be low, at least to my?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have independent living units in that area as well, which is pretty well capped. So yes, there's probably a little bit subsidy in there for that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments before we go to a vote? We've got a mover. Move Councillor Fraser, seconded Councillor Williamson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. I think the ayes have it. Thanks, Karen. And we'll move forward to the grants report, please. And I see a couple of successful ones through here.
Yeah, thank you.
Discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Out of the 5 grants reported on outcomes for this month, 3 of those were successful. So Kiora Music Camp, we've been successful in getting almost $16,000 towards that project. A holiday break summer program focusing on water safety was successful for 5,000. And we got the early childhood education retention payments also paid for by the Federal Department of Education. So that was successful. The unsuccessful ones are related to the Colour Run Craze and the Health and Development Participation Grant that was lodged by our Early Learning Centre. There's a couple of grants in the mix. We've just put an application in for public library infrastructure, another $500,000. We will probably need to wait a few months before we get a response on that one. And as you can see, there's a few grants in the awaiting outcome table. As and when we get notification of those, we'll let you know. And finally, there's a few grant funding opportunities that we're keeping an eye on. They don't close, or one has just closed, with being the Moonam Flat Campground application for the Crown Reserves. And there's some that are closing over the next few months. So we'll keep making applications through those for those projects that are relevant.
Very good. There being no questions, comments, we've got a mover. Move Councillor Fraser, second.
Aye.
Councillor Stiles. It's quite intimidating from this end, I've got to say. All those in favour?
Aye.
I think the ayes have it. We'll move along now to the Scone Upper Hunter Regional Sale Yards Committee. It's been rattling along pretty well down there. There's a lot of numbers going through, which is pleasing to see. But Mr. General Manager, if you could enlighten us further.
Yeah, look, I'll probably take this predominantly as read. I think many of the councillors were at that most recent meeting of the sale yards and probably got a bit of inside knowledge from being at that meeting directly. but I'm happy to take questions. I think the main thing is that, as you've pointed out, Mr. Chair, certainly the volume is up and prices are up as well. Now, whilst we don't get a direct benefit from prices because we're not on a commission basis, we're on a flat fee rate. The agents seem to be doing reasonably well with the volume and the prices that are going through at present.
And importantly, good for our farmers, and good for the local economy. If we're getting plenty of money for our animals, that can filter down to town and town businesses.
I would
Councillor Fraser.
point out though that it's a matter that I've raised repeatedly, is that council provides this venue. It is effectively heavily subsidised by council. The council makes a loss by providing this venue every year. Now, the reason why council makes a loss is firstly because the fees that are being recovered are insufficient to cover council's outlay to run this facility. And secondly, much to my regret, we've been unable to attract an operator of the sale yards who will pay a sum which would cover the costs of operating that facility. So essentially, this is being subsidised by council on all fronts, to the tune of a significant amount of money each year. And while it's pleasing to see an increase in numbers going through, there's no significant extra benefit to council apart from per head rate that they receive for the increased numbers of cattle. As I've indicated previously on my calculations, council really seriously needs to consider raising the fees for use of that facility by about 50%. Alternatively, look at a model where there is a small percentage, say 0.5%, that's levied on the gross sale amounts that go through that facility in order for that facility to break even and not be a burden on council. And I don't say that that's anything that we can do in this committee about that, but I will note that that it is an ongoing drain on council's coffers, and it shouldn't be and doesn't need to be, but it is.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. To my regard on that, I support your regards in notion for the coffers of the council, but as a producer, I would suggest that we are at the higher end of the rates for selling cattle. So there's a fair bit of pushback if we look to increase costs any further in that facility, and it is an overcapitalised facility. There's no doubt about that, and that's where a lot of our costs lie. But I think we've done a very good job balancing up those payments. We're getting good numbers through, and they are very high costs. I know when I run my budgets, I don't like the look of putting my cattle through those yards. It's pretty high, and I have to balance that with transport. At the moment, transport is the balancing position. So on supply demand, do I go to Singleton? No, I don't. I go to Scone. But I don't think we've got much wriggle room. That's from my producer. That's with my producer hat on, and not a councillor hat. But I think it's very pleasing to see good numbers through there, and we've got a really good facility. It's been invested in heavily. Some would say too heavily, but that's a sunk cost now, and we just have to make the most of where we are. So we just need to make sure we maintain that facility and to the best of its cause and in the safest way possible. And we better move along. Sorry, I've got on my high horse there. I had a helmet on. Have a mover, please, for the noting. Moved, Councillor Collison. Seconded, Councillor Williamson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Ayes have it. And move along to the airport. And and the Airport Management Committee, and I believe there was a fair bit of activity out there over the last little bit between fires and movie sets and everything else that seems to pop up. It's quite the menagerie.
That's right, Mr. Chair. So similar to the last report, we're showing a positive variance to budget. So it's good to see the two businesses showing positive variances to the original budget. In regard to the airport, there has been a lot of activity out there in the last week with fire service aircraft utilising the airport. And so much so that we had to cancel one of the driver trainer events last week to accommodate that. And you're right, we've also had movie sets being set up out there for some movie shots being taken over the last few days. So it's been a hive of activity. Most of the, I think, report's fairly self-explanatory. As I said, the finances are showing a positive variance. There's been a fair bit of work with some users out there in regard to changed access conditions and some land sales out there. So that was all explained again in the minutes, but I'm happy to take questions if anyone wants further explanation.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Wayne, the AB data outstanding balances, have we moved any further collecting any of them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're reviewing those and determining to send them off to debt recovery.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, we're not a bank. There's only 13 grand there, but it's 13 grand, it's 13 grand.
Of that 13 grand, it's about just under 8,000 that actually is in the 120-day mark, which is the ones that would effectively go to debt recovery.
So who's actually delinquent with these over-data payments? Is it one body, or is it money that's collected from individual users?
There is one significant one which we might discuss outside of this open report. I'm happy to provide that to councillors, but there's a couple of other smaller individuals, but I think it's probably only about 4 or 5 in total make up the full amount.
Just with the increased traffic in and out of the airport, how are we charging for any of these fire appliances that are coming in and out?
Yes, so in accordance with our fees and charges, Mr. Chair, a fire aircraft that's operating in an environment where it's actually operating as a fire bomber, it's exempt. They pay a single flat fee at the beginning of the year, a emergency services fee. It's heavily discounted in regard to normal aircraft landing fees, and that covers them for the full year.
What's the scope of that expense?
Oh, I think it's it's in the order of $330 per emergency aircraft.
Right.
And a lot of those will probably be operating under a contract with either national parks or the state government, and so we'll probably have some funding provided through those programs.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my question. So, is there an avenue where we could approach state or federal government to perhaps increase or cover some of the costs of utilisation by those aircraft, given that there's no dispute they need to use the runway, and it's fantastic that we've got them, but every time they land on that runway, they're causing it to over time will break down, which will require it to be renewed. Is there some way we could approach, or if there isn't an avenue, should we as council approach the state or federal government, say, how about you come to the party? I assume it's the federal government, come to the party on this with help us with some of these fees.
So councillors, we're applying the fees as been adopted by council. So if you were to change that, you would need to change the fee structure. Having said that, there is scope to do that if you wish. You could change that.
I'm not suggesting we change our fees. I think it's quite reasonable that they use them, but if, as I say, they're causing the same amount of damage taking off or landing the way to the aircraft as it would any other aircraft that does pay fees, but they are performing a useful community function. There's no debate about that on my part. But if there isn't already an avenue for us to receive some funding from higher branches of government, perhaps we might look at writing to them and saying, would you consider helping us out with the costs of these aircraft using our airport?
Yeah, Under the State Emergency Act, there is a clause which is section 44 of the Act, which can be enacted by the minister, and that clause effectively says in a particular emergency, particularly fires, a section 44 event can be funded by the state government. Now, not every fire or bushfire is declared a section 44 event. However, when they are declared, we can access funding and costs associated with that. So there may be a mechanism where during a section 44, any aircraft using the airport during those times could be charged the full rate, knowing that it's going to be picked up not by the individual operator, but by the state. That hasn't normally been our practice, but it could be a mechanism.
It just sounds to me like it might be an appropriate time for council to do some lobbying, if the rules don't provide for water bombers for there to be a contribution from higher levels of government, that maybe we as council write to either the state or federal members or ministers and say, look, these aircraft, we're very happy, we're very, very pleased we've got them, but they're doing a fantastic job, but they are causing the same amount of wear and tear on this runway as any other aircraft, and we'd like a little bit of help because we've got to fund this.
Yes, really, Mr. Chair, just to add to that, I think it's a great idea. I think it's very important after these fires settle down, we do a complete inspection of that runway, especially with those helicopters with the skids have been landing. That's where when they take off when the tarmac's hot. So I think we need a really good inspection of that and get some data on the landings and go to the powers that be and say, well, hey, look, we have a bad hump in our runway, which is affecting these fire bombers. It'd be a good time to go and say, hey, help us out. I certainly agree, Councillor Fraser. Let's send some stuff through.
I'm happy to follow that up, councillors. If you wish to add that to the resolution, you can do so, or we can just do it as a staff action.
Which would you prefer? Would you prefer it logged down, or are you happy to?
It at least gets it onto the record if you do it as a resolution, but
let's do that.
Yeah.
Speaking of, is that your private jet flying in there now, Councillor Fraser? And I did speak with an airport user yesterday who was discussing the rapid deterioration of the runway under the weight of some of these fire bombers. So I think it'll be good to put in a resolution, Karen, that we do a review of the Scone airstrip. Do we want to put a date on that, or would you prefer to?
I would suggest that following this fire season, you could wait till the end of the fire season.
We just call it the fire season as a date.
We lobby state government.
And following that system.
Yep. Yep, that's fine.
Yep.
Undertaking emergency repairs or urgent repairs.
You're happy to. We take that to a vote. You're happy to.
I'll make sure we've got the words right, Karen. Yep. And lobby or make representation might be the better wording. To state ministers for urgent repair works.
Perhaps.
Yeah, we could put state and federal ministers, put both, given that airports come under the federal. Yeah. No, just we know there's going to be urgent repairs required.
We probably do need to put in review of Scone Airport runway after the fire season, current fire season. Very good. All right, I've got a mover for that. Move, Councillor Fraser, second Councillor Collison. All those in favour? The ayes have it, and we'll move along to a reclassification of lot 103. to some operational land.
Thanks, Mr Chair. So councillors, we have a plan now that clearly identifies the boundaries of White Park and the golf course. Prior to this latest plan, both lots were straddling 4 different lots in a whole heap of different configurations. We've neatened this up by ensuring that we've now got 3 lots. One lot entirely encompasses the White Park boundary. Another lot entirely encompasses the golf course. There is a 3rd lot which is neither White Park nor the golf course and is actually got some encroachments on it from the golf club, but likewise we have some encroachments onto their land. By making this 3rd lot, which is a fairly small lot in area, operational, we can then enter into agreements with the golf club to get, I guess, a lease or a license in place to formalise the current encroachments and get that one sorted out. We, I guess this was a part of a previous council discussion in the prior council, but some of the new councils may not be fully across this strategy at this stage. Happy to take any questions or provide extra explanation if needs be.
The parcel you're referring to is lot 15, I take it.
No, council, lot 15 is an old lot, so that's been replaced. If you now go to the drawing on the next page, which is figure 2 on page 57, the red lot boundary is White Park, the green boundary is the golf course itself, and the pink shaded area on the northwestern corner of that diagram is lot 103. 101, might be 101 actually. Yes, showing the golf club land in the middle, which is lot 201, and the pink shaded area is quite an unusually shaped block around the curtilage of that.
Is its classification is that an artifact of it being part of White Park?
That's correct. So the entire all of those original lots were community land, and as such, the new deposited plan carries over the community land status. What we're seeking is just now that we've got the individual lots marked, we can now apply for operational land status just on that very small lot to address the inconsistencies with the encroachments.
So that's just the pink lot in the top left-hand corner on your page 57. Around where the sporties.
There would be a full process undertaken in regard to community consultation, as is normally happens with operational land.
Yeah, that's okay.
Hi Troy, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, well, I think we're getting a bit of background noise, that's all. Sorry.
Yep, no worries.
Yeah, thanks.
That might be better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so councillors, there'll be a similar process to what we did with reclassifying the Hill Street blocks, where we go through a community consultation process. Once that is done, we will prepare a planning proposal to reclassify. That will come to council for final adoption and then go off to the Department of Planning for concurrence.
And I take it it's not a situation where it could be rolled into the White Park lot in DP, because it would be community land, would it not?
That's correct. So the White Park, which is the red bounded area, is community land. We want that to remain as community land. That's the intent there. The red line follows the fence line exactly. So the boundary exactly aligns from White Park. This is outside the fence line, this pink shaded area.
Councillors, we've got any more questions or comments or discussion to be had on the lot 103?
Move the recommendation.
Moved councillor Colson, seconded councillor Fraser. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, councillor Stiles. The ayes have it there, Karen. And we'll move forward just to the request for donations. Please run through, Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So there was 2 requests this month. Neither actually satisfied our policy directly, so they were both advised that they didn't fall within our policy guidelines.
Oh, sorry, councillor Stiles.
Yep. Sorry.
That was my bad. You couldn't hear me then. Councillor Fraser. Did you, were you positive on the vote there? Yes. Yes. Righto. All those in favour. Thank you.
Aye.
Karen. Righto. Now we've got some confidential information here. If I've got somebody to move us into confidential.
There were previous questions.
Oh,
We
there were some
don't
previous
normally take
questions.
questions on that, Mr. Chair, but if
All right.
there's any clarifications of any of the information, we're happy to answer
Okay.
that.
No, we're going to move her. Move councillor Fraser, second councillor Colson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Responses to previous questions. And now can I have somebody to move us into confidential, please? Councillor Fraser, second councillor Colson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Let's have it. And